Hello, everyone, and welcome to Torah with your host, Rabbi Anibal Mas. So happy to be with all of you again, and I'm trying something different today. I don't know if you noticed. There, I am streaming both in landscape and portrait. I don't know. It's an experiment. The software we use to stream is just offering this, and I say, okay, I'll take it. Let's see how it comes out. So that means that it may be better for some people watching from a phone. I don't know. If you notice any difference in the format of things, just let me know if you notice something like that. I don't know. It's something new. You know me. I like to experiment with new things. Cappuccino. Wow. And Janet, you like the Nespresso pop. Yeah, I think that's something like that I have here with the big capsule, with the virtual and things. Welcome, Ariel Lee. No, but I have something different. I just came from a coffee shop. I was meeting a congregant, so I don't want to have yet another coffee. So I'm having this kind of thing that is a protein shake. I think in the States you can also get it. It's really delicious. It's kosher. It has the hechsher there, so it's absolutely kosher. Everything that this company do, and it's 32 grams of protein, not too shabby. Very nice, and very, very, really, really delicious. Really delicious. Um, Lori, you're having Nestle Toll House coffee. Wow. So again, welcome Lori, Ariel, Brenda, David, Janet. Who else is there? Say hello so I can see you. Took too much of my screen. I had to close the app and reopen. I think it depends on how you hold your phone. If you hold it vertical or not. So I can see it here. It gives me a preview how it will look in different places. In my screen, at least, it looks better if I do it vertically on my phone. I will open my phone. Give me a minute, guy, and I will see how it. I'll tell you in a minute how it looks. Sometimes I try to see this. Let's see. Yeah, it looks actually nice. You see? That's the way it looks like. I think if you have a phone, this is a better way of watching, right? It's the whole screen. So you will see now when I start playing the slides for the class, and then we'll see how it looks. It's supposed to be better, but you never know. Computers, you never know. I will do it in a minute. We are still welcoming people to the class. Welcome, Andy Media Tech. That's the name I have here. Welcome to the class. Hello, Holly. Welcome to the class as well. We're going to study today a little bit of the Parsha. It's going to take a little bit of a more interesting approach of trying to understand what really happened at the beginning of the Parsha. This dialogue or this command that God gave to Aaron and the warnings that he got and things. You'll see. I want to take a little different approach today and dive a little deeper into the text to try to understand a little bit of the language of the Parsha and stuff like that. So, yeah. So I'm going to go now to the first slide, and I want you again to give me feedback of how it looks when I go vertically versus horizontally, and then you'll see. You see that? You will see it in a second, and the way it's organized now. Let's see. I'm looking at my phone. It should show up at any time because there is a delay between of what I say and there. Yeah, it looks good in the phone. It looks actually good. Text is clear. Yeah, the chat is going to be superposed with my image, that's fine. It won't cover the text that we are studying today, so that part should be fine. Okay? Couldn't get it. Go to landscape. You don't need landscape, Brenda. I think portrait is better for phones. Portrait is better for phones. Hello, Shali Chachina. Welcome. Portrait is always better for phone. Landscape is better for computers. That's why I'm trying to also stream on portrait. Yeah. Okay. So we are starting here. We are starting the beginning of the Parsha, of today's Parsha. Oh, Lori, you're going ahead of us. What is this strange fire, right? We are going to study a little bit of that, Lori, of what really happened with Aaron's children, right? So, but let me start reading Leviticus 16:1. It said, God spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron who died when they drew too close to the presence of God. And yes, Lori, there is a this is new information. This is new information on Aaron. So Brenda, you said that you need to figure it out. I don't know what is the issue that you're having. If it's not clear what you see, give me more details, because I don't have to keep streaming portrait. I just thought that maybe it looked a little better for phones, right? Otherwise, yeah, that's why I'm starting to do it this way. So, yeah, we have new information. Last time that we read about the death of the two sons of Aaron, it says there that they died because they offer a quote-unquote strange fire. But now we learn that it wasn't just strange fire. There is a new piece of information. They said that they drew too close to the presence of God. So this is clearly new information about what happened with them. And there is even more information if you read the context of what happened there, because remember that the first thing that God told to Moses after the death of Nadav and Abihu, those were the names of the two sons of Aaron, was the warning of not drinking before fulfilling their duties at the temple. Okay, so we may, if we put all the pieces together, we may understand that maybe it wasn't just one thing that they did wrong, that it was a combination of things that they did wrong. So Brenda, you're getting the class now in the old format. Okay, you prefer the old format. Okay, that's good to know. I'd like to know, guys, what you prefer. If you prefer the old format or the vertical format. I can do it either way, and just that's a new thing that's how YouTube allowed me to do, and I thought that maybe I was one to try it to see how it went. Okay, so this is what I wanted to explore with all of you today. What happened with Nadav and Abihu? What was the issue, or issues, plural, after all this new information that we have? Okay. Now, Lori, you said they took let me put it there. They took the incense, but didn't they the showbread? Ashira Myers. I like either. Oh, come on, Ashira Myers. Shush. Okay, Shelley, you like that format. So, let's go back to the life of Aaron and his sons. Okay. There were a few things. Number one is we have to understand what was the strange fire, because the Torah doesn't give details. Clearly, that part is related to bringing the wrong kind of incense or something. Did they do that because they were drunk? We don't know. But now we also know through this parsha that they got too close to the presence of God, quote unquote, right? And we are going to see what that means, or how is that understood. Okay? So, listen to this. Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah would explain this with a parable. Now we are going to try to understand other things of the parsha. Listen to this parable. A sick person was visited by a physician who said to him, "Do not eat cold food and do not lie in the dump lest you die." Okay? Then there came a second physician who said to him, "Do not eat cold food and do not lie in the dump lest you die as so and so died." The second one influences him more than the first. Thus, it says, after the death of the two sons of Aaron. So what happened here is now Rashi is trying to understand why in this world would the Torah say to Aaron, okay, give more information about what happened with his two sons and why they died, because it is implicitly it is implicit in the message that it was also a message for Aaron to prevent him from doing something wrong. But it's interesting. Rashi here says that it's not just that the Torah said to Aaron, "Don't do this or don't do that," right, because it's bad to you. The Torah also included an example of what could happen if Aaron will go and make that mistake, which is an interesting teaching for all of us. In a way, we communicate something to other people. You know what? Sometimes, and this happens a lot with. It happens a lot with kids, right? When you tell kids, "Don't do this" or "Don't do that," they go and do it because they cannot see what could happen. They cannot imagine what could happen if they are doing it when you told them not to do it. But perhaps it's whenever you say to somebody, "Please don't do that, because if you do that, it's going to happen the same that happened to so and so," then you can actually visualize the issues with doing something that is forbidden. You know, it happened with everything. "Don't put your fingers in the outlet." Psst. Why? Well, because if you do that, it's going to happen the same thing. Let me show you what happened. You show them something that happened to somebody else. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. That. So, I don't know. I don't know what you think about that. If you ever had the issue with struggling to communicate something to somebody else because people couldn't get it, I want to hear from you. If you ever been in that situation, because I would say that is very common among people. Sometimes a message is not heard because we are not clear enough of the consequences. And here, through this story, I think that we should all learn from the Torah to be clear when we want to communicate something, right? That human beings cannot comprehend sometimes abstract concept, that we need to give examples. And people understand better when we give examples. Oh, Brenda, don't rely on Facebook closed captions, because as soon as I started reading Hebrew, you won't know what to do and you will have getting gibberish. Here, people mentioned that to me the other day, that is not reliable. So, just saying. Okay, so I wanted to start with this and this kind of message, this kind of teaching that we learn about how we communicate something. But let's continue. Now let's go to Hizkuni. It said, the Torah realized that in order to impress Aaron sufficiently with the prohibition to enter the Holy of Holies at will, he had to be warned of the consequences if he disregarded the warning. Torah Kohanim, so that is, the version there is as follows. In the second verse, Moses is asked to remind Aaron that his two sons had died because they had ignored the warning not to enter the Holy of Holies unless invited to do so. So basically, this is also a message to Aaron saying that, even though, Aaron, you are the high priest, you should avoid doing that as well. And this is very interesting. And you know how sometimes, you said we think that the rules applies to others, but not to us. And I'm pretty sure we all been on that side of the argument, right? That we believe that the rules applies to others, but not to us. So basically, this is a warning that this applies to you too, right? You also have to be careful. Not because you're the high priest, you're exempt from doing everything that your son did wrong. You have to be careful as well. Okay? Holy, let's see what you say here. Let me read your message. I think it's important to share consequences. If you don't, someone might say, why didn't you really tell me what could happen? Yeah. Yeah. And it's even better when you try to explain, and it happens to me, when you try to explain to somebody else and you have to give an example, if you are the example, you said, look, I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm trying to tell you what happened to me last time I did that. So I'm just trying to do it for your own good. Don't do it, because this is what could happen to you if you do that. Okay? Shelly said, I'm not receiving the text messages. Well, it's probably the text messages in my phone are in the bottom of the screen. I can read them, actually. They just cover my face. Right? I don't know. That's the way I see it. So now there is a whole thing that I want to explain before we move on to the next text. And is you have to picture the tabernacle at the time and, fast forward the temple as well. They have different sections. The central part was what is called the Holy of Holies. And that section could be accessed by the high priest only once a year. And we want to see in other texts, it's explained better, was only on Yom Kippur. Okay, but Moses could enter there on demand whenever God would ask Moses to go there. So it was kind of confusing, maybe at the time, because this is the very beginning of the functioning of the tabernacle. And, who can enter there and when, under what circumstances, etc. So it was not clear, and that's why this is a time for the Torah to bring some clarification on how that works. And that usually happens with every new things. When, when you have to be very specific because people are unfamiliar with a new situation. So unfortunately, it's something that is very difficult to do. And on top of that, add any issues that you may find as you go. Now, this is something that, to be fair, God commanded at the beginning not to do it, or to be very specific of what they bring, when they bring it, and where they bring it. But maybe because examples were not given, or the consequences were not clear, unfortunately, that sad situation of the death of the two sons of Aaron happened. So we have to learn from here to be very clear, okay, on our messages. Now, listen to this. The Ramban will add, the meaning of the phrase after the death of the two sons of Aaron is that immediately after the death of his sons, he had warned Aaron against drinking wine or strong drink when going into the tent of the meeting, so that he should not die. And now he told Moses, in addition, to warn him, so that he should not die when he draws near the eternal, even in a sober condition, but at a time when he is not commanded to do so. So, what was the confusion at the time? The confusion was that maybe Aaron will think, okay, what God told me before is that I should not enter to the holiest of holies after I had wine. And now this parsha said, no. It's not only about not having wine before coming to the Holy of Holies. It's only you should come to the Holy of Holies only at the proper time. Okay? So it keeps implying that the sons of Aaron committed not just one mistake, they made not just one mistake, but multiple mistakes. Named. Number one, they brought what they shouldn't. Number two, they were drunk. And number three, they entered at the wrong time. Okay? They didn't supposed to go that close. And we are going to see that even when Aaron's supposed to enter to that place, he had lots of restrictions of what he should do when he entered to the Holy of Holies. Now you have to imagine what was the Holy of Holies. In that place, the Ark of the Covenant was there. Okay? And it's supposed to be on top of the Ark of the Covenant some kind of cloud representing the Shekinah, the presence of God. The experiencing of that unique cloud was reserved exclusively for Moses. Okay? Nobody else could experience that cloud. So we will see that even when Aaron was invited to enter to the Holy of Holies once a year, he could be there, but he could not directly see the cloud. And there was one safeguard to prevent that I don't want to say it yet. If you know it, let me know in the chat what was the safeguard so Aaron wouldn't experience directly the cloud. But it was there. It was there. It was that separation. Now, for everybody else, there was a curtain after the Holy of Holies, so nobody could see it anyway from the outside. Nobody could see it anyway. It was a very interesting thing. That's why, by the way, I don't know if you knew this. I always like to explain this practical things for people to get more familiar with synagogue. When you come to synagogue, the ark that we have at the synagogue, where the Torah is inside, it is kind of in remembrance of the Ark of the Covenant that used to be the Holy of Holies, right? But that's why in the Ark we have a curtain that is called the parochet. That is coming from the times where it was a parochet, there was a curtain outside of the Holy of Holies, so people could not see what it was inside unless that the curtain was open. So that's why when you have an ark, the ark needs to have a cover. Sometimes could be a door, but most of the time it's a door and a curtain, because back at the time of the temple, it used to be a curtain. Now you know, that's why you have the curtain in the ark when you come to synagogue, okay? So that's the practical thing that we learn. Let's continue. Now, listen to this, because I find this text very interesting, because now, remember I mentioned three things that the sons of Aaron did wrong? Well, now that Zekainim, this collection, is going to bring yet another thing that it was implied that they did wrong. Almost like a fourth thing. Listen to this. This phenomenon is also the subject of Psalms 78:63. Fire consumed their young men, and their maidens remained unwed. That is a verse of the book of Psalms, okay? Now, the psalmist explains the reason that the sons of Aaron had to die as being that they had failed to get married. So, let me back up. Now, the Midrash is connecting that verse of the book of Psalms with the death of the sons of Aaron. Okay? So, when the verse of the Psalms said, fire consumes their young men. Who were the young men in the words of the Midrash? The two sons of Aaron, right? And then it says, and their maidens remained unwed. It implies that the two sons of Aaron never got married. Okay? So let's continue. The psalmist explained the reason. Is that the reason that the sons of Aaron had to die as being that they had failed to get married. So, let's go slowly here. But the Midrash implies that the death was also a punishment because they didn't get married. Not because they couldn't get married, right? Not because they couldn't find somebody suitable, but listen why. They had described themselves as so superior that no one was good enough to become their wives. They overestimated the value of having been born into such prominent families as their father and uncle. That means Aaron and Moses. The result of their haughtiness was that they died without leaving behind any children. In other words, no one remembered them. In other words, I'm going to say another words to the other words, is nobody recited, they have no children to recite Kaddish for them, right? But this is very interesting because it helps us to understand the psychology of these two individuals in a different way. In a way that now we know the level of arrogance that they had. And I'm pretty sure that was devastating for Moses and Aaron, that they were all the opposite, right? But it's not uncommon when people are born into a prominent family. They have everything easy from the beginning, spoiled from the time that they were born. And they grow up feeling untouchable. And they feeling better than everybody else. And they feel entitled to everything. To the point that, well, not only, I mean, the Midrash here take it to the point that, no spouse was good enough for them, right? Because look who I am, and there is no way that somebody will be up to my stature to get married to me, right? But also that no rules apply to me. And this is very common for people who develop this sense of entitlement. No rule applies to me. Rules are for losers. I can do whatever I want. And then they have this shock of reality when they decided what to bring, when to bring it, where to bring it, what to bring, and they died. Because rules did apply, even to them. And now let's go back to the Parsha when that happened. Where Aaron, it says there that Aaron had no words. Because truly, if you feel at that point that you fail your children, but the way you spoil them on everything, that never said no to them, you always allow them to do whatever they wanted to do, right? You never put a stop to that when you still had a chance to do it. And then tragedy happened because that conversation with the children never happened. How would you feel? I would probably feel like Aaron. I would have nothing to say. Not because I wouldn't know what to say, because there is nothing else to say. This is not the time to say it. You know what I mean? That's when the Torah says that Aaron said nothing, is because that was not the time to say anything. When it was the time to say something, when it was the time to have the conversation with his sons, it didn't happen. In part, now that we know more about Aaron, that Aaron was a person who always avoided conflict, right? It was part of his personality. And the Mishnah describes him as somebody who loved peace and pursued peace, and he couldn't stand people fighting with each other, but at the same time he was a person who avoided conflict. Look at what happened at the time of the golden calf. They even allowed the people of Israel to build the golden calf because he didn't want to fight with them. And then, now that we can start putting all the pieces together, I'm wondering how Aaron will feel about that part of his personality, right? But it also was tragic at the time of the golden calf because he didn't stop the Jewish people from doing it, and so many people die in that generation. So let's go back to the chat a little bit. Shali Chochinov, you said, sadly, this is true even today. Yeah, yes. Lori, you said, are there descendants of Moses walking around today? Well, we have no way to know who is a descendant of Moses. We do know who is the descendant of Aaron. Everybody that is a Kohen is a descendant of Aaron, right? that is one of the one of the section of the Jewish people that we can trace their genealogy all the way to Aaron, right? With Moses is more complicated. Now, here Shelley said there is often reference to the psalmist. It is Hashem or Alter Ego. No, this is actually we said the psalmist. This is King David, and again, Shelley, this is part of the midrash, right? So what we are understanding here is that whoever wrote this midrash believes that David was inspired by the story of the two sons of Aaron when he wrote Psalm 78, right? So on that line is King David inspired by the events of this week's Parsha. That's why I wanted to bring it to you. But then, I mean, do we know that that's a fact? Well, that is, we don't know that that's a fact. That is the words of the Midrash, right? I don't think there is a contradiction. Maybe King David had a different inspiration, but it's still interesting to make the connection between the two stories. So yeah, let's continue. Oh, this is all gold. Let's go to the next verse now. We opened the class with Leviticus 16:1. Let's go to Leviticus 16:2 that it says, God said to Moses, tell your brother Aaron that he is not to come at will into the shrine behind the curtain, in front of the cover that is upon the ark, lest he died, for I appear in the cloud over the cover. So there are a few things here. And we are going to see the comments, right? Because the language is very interesting. It doesn't say, the Torah doesn't say, tell Aaron, in the sense of tell the priests, right? It says, tell your brother Aaron. Not just Aaron, but talk to him as your brother. Do you understand the difference between speak to Aaron as a priest or speak to Aaron as your brother? And we are going to see that the rabbis understand this as a continuation of the same topic on entitlement. It's all part of the same thing, entitlement, right? And this is something very common, right? You know who my father is. No, you know who my brother is. And we feel that if our father or our brother have certain privileges, well, we should have the privileges as well because we are part of the same family. So here, it's very interesting that the Torah said, talk to Aaron as your brother, lest he think that because you can enter, to the shrine many times, he's entitled to do that as well. So he's a priest, like all the priests that are going to come after him. So explain that to him, that he doesn't have any kind of brother privileges. So, and I like that message that we get from the Torah, because I believe that sometimes we all need that reminder about not going around feeling like, we are above other people, right? So let's go to the comments from the rabbis to get inspired by this story. Listen to this. So Rashi says, as his sons have died, for if he comes into the Holy of Holies at any time other than Yom Kippur, he will die. So please, number one, Rashi said, Moses should explain to him, okay, that he's allowed to enter there, but only on Yom Kippur. That's it. There is more. And he said, listen to this. Inasmuch as Moses had told Aaron on the very first day of his anointment as high priest to go ahead and offer his sin offering on the other altar, the meaning was that it was only the altar situated in the courtyard which Aaron had unrestricted access to. It also implies that there are times when Aaron will be permitted to enter to the Holy of Holies. One every year, in Yom Kippur, Aaron was to enter the Holy of Holies. So again, you know what I told you before? That when you have a new situation, it creates lots of confusion, right? Because we never did that before, so now we have to start to figure out the rules. So this is one thing. It was preventing Aaron from thinking, okay, there is another altar outside the Holy of Holies, and I can go there whenever I want. So maybe that means I can also go to the other one, and then they said, no. The two altars, so these two holy places within the sanctuary, the tabernacle, they were different. One is for you, and according to the rules, you can go there. The other one is not for you, and you have to respect that. You have to respect that there is a boundary that you cannot cross. And don't feel that because your brother can enter there, you can enter there as well. It's not your place to go. Okay? I think this is a great parsha for us to understand boundaries. And I'm pretty sure Aaron, at some level, couldn't understand why Moses could enter there and he couldn't. Right? But sometimes, and the Torah never explains why. But that's life. Sometimes we have to understand that there are certain things that we don't understand. And that's fine. We don't need to understand when we go to a place and they have their own rules and their own policies. Even if you don't understand the policies, you have to follow them. I think it's when we go, sometimes it happens, you go to different synagogues and they have different traditions, so they do things differently to the synagogues where you go, where you're going to do whatever you want. No, you follow the traditions that they do there. That's the way society works. So here we have all these teachings around that, and sometimes they go unnoticed. But I think it's very inspirational to learn about rules, about boundaries specifically, from the life of Moses and Aaron. Sorry, it had to be done in the biblical text in this tragic way, but it's to inspire all of us to understand the concept of being humble when we go to a place that is not our place. It's all about developing humility about that. Now, let's continue with the Rashbam. This is very interesting. And listen to this. It says, if the priest will see this area with his own eyes, he will die. Therefore, when he will enter the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies on Yom Kippur, to burn the incense and sprinkle the blood of the bull and ram of the sin offering on the dividing curtain, the cloud will first wrap the entire tabernacle into darkness so that he will not be able to see what he was not allowed to see. Okay? So what happened here, this is what I wanted to tell you before, is one of the things that happened, on Yom Kippur, the only day where the high priest will be able to enter to the Holy of Holies, the Torah says that Aaron and in the future other high priests will have to enter with incense on their hand. What it means is you already have a lot of smoke coming from the incense. So they said that incense will first fill up the room. So even if Aaron was entering to the Holy and Holies, Aaron will never be able to see God's cloud hovering on top of the Ark of the Covenant. So that is also a practical thing embedded on that message for Aaron. The fact that he said with the incense, but now we can start understanding many of the other things that maybe Aaron's sons do wrong. When they said, and strange fire, maybe they brought something that it didn't have the correct incense, all the smoke to prevent them from experiencing the Shekinah. And that was something that maybe they didn't do it properly, maybe because they were drunk, or maybe because they were above everything else, that they could come out with their own ways of doing things. And they say, maybe, because we are so special, we don't need to cover the place with heavy smoke so we wouldn't experience Shekhinah. Maybe we should do it our way. And it didn't go well for them. Didn't go well for them when they tried to create their own things. So sometimes it teaches to be respectful, to be to be humble and respectful, right? And as it says here, and this is another thing that we learn from this parsha, and I like this commentary. In order to avoid the death of more priests, a spatial boundary is established between the holy shrine and the Holy of Holies behind the curtain. Aaron, as well as his successors as chief priest, must not cross this line except on the Day of Atonement. Crossing at any other time will result in death, since God's presence is tangible beyond the curtain. So, what I'm saying here is that it is implied from the text that because of what happened, and regardless of the law of God, of what they could do and what they cannot do, they decided to create a safety zone so that nobody will be in the same situation by mistake. Okay? So it's a compromise how you call it, outcome here, in the sense that the rules, the law, the policy were still in place, but there were other things to help people to never cross the line. You know what I mean? It's like let's say that I put a sign in a mountain and said, don't get close to the cliff or you may fall. Everybody understands that, right? But you can't prevent some person, I don't want to swear or say anything not nice, to say, okay, but I want to see what happened. And, they get close to the edge and they fall. So nothing stops you from, on top of saying, don't get close to the cliff. Nothing stops you for, on top of that, putting a fence or a chain or something so people won't actually get close there. Okay? So that is what eventually ended up happening, even though it was not part of the original plan. By understanding human nature, they ended up creating a spatial boundary, like a buffer zone where priests could have a physical marker that they should not be on that. So it's also something that we learn from this week's Parsha, to do something like that. That there is rule, but there is also human understanding humanity and added other things. Okay? Oh, hold on a minute. I have to... Okay, so let's continue. Now let's go to another verse, and I wanted to talk with you a little bit about this because this is one of the most famous verses in the entire Torah, where it says, "You shall not take vengeance, not bear any grudge against the sons of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I am Hashem." This is one of the most famous verses in the entire Torah. And this is a verse that even people who are not religious people, they take this verse close to heart. They take this close to heart, and they take it as like something that humanity can be inspired by it. Love your neighbor as yourself. But the way I wanted to bring it to you is that the verse is not just that. This is the part that everybody remembers. Love your neighbor as yourself. Nothing wrong with that. But as Jews or as people studying Torah, we should know that that's not the complete verse. There are two other parts that people forget. Number one, you shall not take vengeance, not bear any grudge against the son of your people. That's number one. And number two, part that everybody forgets, is the end. Ani Adonai. I am God. That's the reason why we do what we do. Those two parts usually they get conveniently trimmed. Brenda, you say, "Oh, that was my part of my adult bat mitzvah parsha. Very nice. So you had the bat mitzvah on this parsha. Very nice. Now let's explain the first part. What is the difference between taking vengeance or bearing grudge? Sometimes when we read that part, it looks like they are synonyms, but they are not. Listen to this. What constitutes taking vengeance? And the rabbis explain. They say, well, for example, he says to him, "Lend me your sickle." And the latter replies, "Nope." So the next day, the latter said to him, "Lend me your axe." And he said to him, "Well, I will not lend it to you, just as you did not lend it to me." That constitutes revenge. Okay? So listen to this example, because now we can understand how we are violating this Torah commandment more often than we think. Sometimes we think about revenge into major issues, but it could be as simple as like a dispute in the office, or with a neighbor, with a friend, something small like this. Like, if somebody didn't do you a favor in the past, now if they ask you for a favor, you will say, "Nope, I won't do it." Why not? Because, well, when I ask you, you didn't do it for me, so I won't do it for you. No, that is a clear violation of a Torah law, right? Forget about love your neighbor as yourself. It's the beginning of the verse that if you take vengeance in these petty little things, it's the same as if you take vengeance in large issues. It's a clear violation of a Torah law. Okay? And what is the second part of the verse? That it says, what constitutes bearing a grudge? And the Talmud brings an example. For example, he said to him, "Lend me your axe." And the latter said, "Nope." Then the next day, the latter said to him, "Lend me your sickle." Now, if he says to him, "Here it is for you, I am not like you, who did not lend it to me." Well, this constitutes bearing a grudge, for he keeps the hatred in his heart, even though he does not take revenge. So, what is the difference between the two? Taking vengeance is both action and feeling. Action and feeling. You don't do something for somebody else, and on top of that, you have that bitter feeling inside your heart. Now, bearing a grudge, it seems to be a little bit better, because now there is an action, right? You do something for somebody else, but you still have the bad feeling inside your heart. Interestingly enough, the Torah put the two together, taking a vengeance and bearing a grudge, at the same level. Okay? So it's telling you something, that they are not two different verses. It's the same verse. And why are these two things there? And then the Torah continues, but love your neighbor as yourself, because the Torah is bringing the medicine, right after mentioning the illness. In other words, what is the solution of not taking vengeance or bearing a grudge? What is the solution if you are in that situation? The solution is love your neighbor as yourself. But somebody says, "I don't care You don't know what that person did to me. That's why the verse ends with the words, I am God. I know what the other person did to you. I'm God. I know everything. I know exactly that's the way, you know, people interact with each other. We offend each other. We are not nice to each other. It's part of life. I know that. I'm God. So I understand if God said, I understand this is the way it is. You understand it too. Sometimes people could be having a bad day. Who knows? Who knows what the person will go through in that day when you got offended by that person. So let it go. Love your neighbor as yourself, because what is it? As yourself. Put yourself on their place. And ask yourself if you ever been in that situation when you were in a bad day and you ended up offending somebody else. Right? So let it go. God knows how it is. So you should know. We should know it too. We should learn. We should learn from God. And yeah, Holly, you said a way to walk a little higher in the world. Yep, that's the way it is. You see, this the midrash reminds us, and you shall love your friend as you love yourself. Rabbi Akiva said this is a fundamental principle of the Torah. Because this it is. Sometimes we forget this. We forget this this concept and this mitzvah, and how this is a fundamental principle of the Torah, and something that should be combined with everything else we do in Judaism. Everything else we do should be combined with loving our neighbor, our friends, as we love ourselves. It's everything should be combined. We also learned this from this famous story that is in the Talmud. That there is a story about a Gentile who came before Shammai and said to him, I will convert if you teach me the entire Torah while I stand on one foot. Shammai pushed him away with a measuring stick that was in his hand. Not very loving, right? The Gentile then went to Hillel, who helped him to convert. Hillel told him, whatever is hateful to you, do not do to your friend. This is the entire Torah. The rest is explanation. Now, go and study the explanations, right? But not after you understand the fundamental principle. Love your neighbor as yourself, or as Hillel said it here, put it in more practical terms, whatever is hateful to you, do not do to your friends. So put yourself in the situation. Try to understand that people are people. We go through bad moments. Okay? Don't be so rushed to judge. Love your neighbor as yourself. And once you understand that, and only after you understand that, go and study the Torah. Because if you don't understand that first, your Torah study won't go so well. That's why I mentioned this to you guys when we were studying about counting of the Omer. Why it's so important to count the Omer before Shavuot when we receive the Torah. Because first we learn ethics and morals and be nice to each other. And then we are ready to receive the Torah on Shavuot. Okay? But we need to develop humility. We need to learn to accept boundaries and not to think that we are better than anybody else, and to sometimes walk away from that sense of entitlement that sometimes we develop in life. I think this parsha is a beautiful. You see now, you can see one verse after the other that they are all pointing to the same place. Okay? And sometimes even if we need a little help to see the connection from one to the other. And that's what I wanted to bring to you guys for when we study this week's parsha, okay? So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And yeah, so if you missed any part of this class, remember it's going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 Central Time. Okay, I'm going to rebroadcast this entire class. And so for now, Remember, give us the thumbs up. Share this message with somebody else if you think that somebody else will be benefited with this. Maybe there is something you want to tell somebody else who doesn't respect boundaries or is or it sometimes go around with this sense of entitlement. You can forward this. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. And yeah, thank you everyone for being there week after week. And have a wonderful rest of your day. And hope to see you soon. Bye everyone.